In this video, I'll be photo matching this image onto my S15 here using a plugin named PnPoint. And for demonstration purposes, I'll be pretending as if I'm trying to model this front bumper here. If you do not have PnPoint installed already, then you can just Google it. There's a Gumroad and a GitHub page. You can install just like any other Blender add-on. Just make sure that once you do, you click on this Install OpenCV button. The way how it works is that I'll have my reference image here with some reference points. These are the green dots over here. And I'll be doing the same inside of Blender as well. I'll place these empties all across the whole car in the same exact spots as they were on my reference image. And PnPoint will come in. It'll create a new camera like this one, which hopefully should line up all of these empties with these reference points, like so. And that one, this one as well. You get the picture. As you can imagine, these reference points are extremely important to getting good results, and they're also very sensitive. So I'll begin this video by demonstrating where you should be placing these reference points. Here I am in Photoshop, and we will need at least 6 points for PnPoint to calibrate our camera. Now I'll be drawing these reference points as these green dots, but you shouldn't need to draw anything on your photo. I'm just doing this to visualize the thought process and how you can apply these guidelines. First, since I'm trying to model this front bumper here, I will want to avoid placing any reference points directly on top of this bumper. So as a visual note, I will blank it out. Second, you want to place your reference points on places that are very easy for you to identify, like this sharp corner, for example. If I were to go on my 3D model, I can see it's right there. There's no confusion about it. So this is a good reference point to have right there. Third, you want to have at least a few points that are somewhat close to the part that you're trying to model. So I'm trying to make this front bumper. So I placed these 3 points, 2 in the hood and 1 in the fender. Fourth, if you don't have access to the camera's focal length, then this next step is very important. You want to have some points that are closer to the camera, like these 3 ones that we already have, but you also want some points that are further away from the camera, like these ones. For the record, the focal length of this image is 42 millimeters, but in this video, I will pretend as if I don't have this information, and we will see if PnPoint can figure this out. If you've taken the photo yourself, then try not to crop it. Otherwise, if you're dealing with an image that was taken from the internet, like this one for example, then try to space out your reference points. Ideally, you should have some points that are closer towards the edges of your image. That being said, even if this image wasn't cropped in the first place, it's still a good habit for you to space out your reference points. And lastly, you want to give each of these reference points a number. The order of these numbers doesn't really matter. It's just a mental note for yourself. And that is pretty much it for your reference images. Of course, every image is different, so you will need to improvise with different images. Maybe place some points in different positions. And once again, you don't need to open up Photoshop and draw all of these points manually. If you're comfortable, you can just mentally map out these points in your head. And now we're in Blender. I'm going to open up a new window. I'm going to hover my mouse over here and press Shift F2 for the movie clip editor. And I'm just going to grab my image and drop it here. There it is. I'm going to press Control Spacebar to full screen it. And here's a very important thing that may not be very obvious. This image over here, it only exists on the first keyframe. So if you accidentally move it, it's going to disappear. So if that ever happens to you, just make sure that you haven't accidentally moved yourself on the timeline. Other than that, we are now ready to place some tracks onto our scene. So to do that, you want to hold down Control, left click, and that places a track. You can use the same shortcuts as Blender, so G to move, right click to cancel, X to delete, you know, the usual. I'm going to do the same for all of these points. And there's all of our points placed. Now we're going to do the same exact steps, but in our 3D viewport. First, I will just hide these panels, so T and N. and we're gonna create a new collection. Very important, you need a collection. Let's name this one PnPoint points. Yeah. Now we're gonna spawn in some empties. So Shift A, empty, sphere. I'm gonna make it a small one, 0.02, I guess. Yeah, it's fine. Now I could move it into place like caveman by XYZing it, I guess, but there's a smarter way to do this. You want to use your snap settings. Open that. Use either center or median, and either use vertex or face. I'm gonna use vertex. And all I'm gonna do is press G to move it, and then hold down Control, and you can see it snaps to the surface. So I'm going to place it in roughly the same spot as spot number 1. Yeah, same for spot number 2. So Shift D, hold down Control, boom. There we go. Spot number 3, Shift D, boom. Let's see. And I think that's it. Now it's time for PnPoint to calibrate our camera. So I'm going to hover my mouse over here, press T, go solve, and down here we have PnPoint. So first up, collection. I'm going to choose the collection I created, this one. And now we need to think about what do we want to calibrate. So the first one, focal length. I actually know this number already. It is 42 millimeters. So if I want to use that, I can just press N, go to track, camera, set the sensor width. My camera was 22.3 millimeters wide, and then go into lens. And then you can set the focal length right here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pretend as if I didn't have this number. So let's see if PnPoint can figure it out. Second, the optical center. You want to take this on if you're not sure whether this image was previously cropped. In my case, I took this photo myself and I know I didn't crop it, so I can just leave it off. Third, the radial distortion. You want to take some of these on if you're dealing with a very distorted image, especially around the edges. So that's very common on wide angle lenses or a very zoomed out photo. Personally, I've never needed to use K3. There was one time where I had to use K1, so you may need to give it a try. For this image, I just need the focal length. So let's hit calibrate. And now PnPoint has given us two things. First, it has calibrated the focal length. And second, it has given us the reprojection error. I'll talk more about this later. So the first one, the calibrated focal length. Let's check what number we got. And to see what PnPoint has calibrated, you can press N, go track, camera, lens, and these are the numbers that PnPoint is trying to calibrate. In our case, we calibrated the focal length to be 43.5, which is kind of close to 42. I'm sure if you've done a better job at placing these tracks and these empties, you can get this number to be even closer. And now for the second thing, we got a reprojection error of 7. Now this is a very handy number to look at, but you shouldn't rely on it too much. For one, this number here can get very inflated when you're using a high resolution photo. Another thing to consider is that these panels that you're placing your points on, they aren't always in pristine condition. So for example, this S15 here was at least 23 years old when I took this photo. You can kind of see that this fender might have been pushed out slightly. This panel gap doesn't look very consistent. This hood might even have some fitment issues. This gap here looks kind of big. All that is to say is that these cars are not always perfect, even some modern cars. So some projection error is to be expected. Anyways, let's see if PnPoint can actually place a camera that is photo matched to this photo. So let me just press solve camera. We got a new camera here. And now there's two ways to view this camera. You can press the dot key on your numpad, or you can hold down tilde or the backtick key. Move your mouse to view camera. And there it is. Now to get a better view, I went into control spacebar. Gonna press Shift Z for wireframe mode. And then we're gonna turn off X-ray mode with Alt Z or by pressing this button. And now you just wanna use your eyes and inspect whether PnPoint has done a good job. Right off the bat, I can kind of tell that this front fender over here isn't lining up as well as it could. So maybe it was actually pushed out. This A pillar over here as well, not perfect either. But the rest of the car looks good. This side skirt looks to be perfect. This body line seems to be following the curves nicely. Same for the one on the hood. Yep. So you could probably get a better job done if you were to use a more pristine condition S15, or if you've done a better job with PnPoint. But this camera over here should be good enough for you to make a photo matched front bumper. Keep in mind, you can still move these tracks around. Just make sure the camera is selected and hit solve, and it will recalculate the position. The projected error may be a little higher, but you should be using your eyes instead. And if you want to reset any of these calibrated measures, you can go to here. Let's hit calibrate. You can see it calculates some stuff. If you want to revert those, you can just hit spacebar. There you go. And now it's back to how it was. In any case, by this point, you should have a camera set up. So it should be in the collection, but you can move it outside of it. And I know these points over here, they can look very annoying to you. So you might be tempted to hide them like this, but don't be a caveman. Just click on this check mark over here for the collection, and this will automatically hide everything inside it and hide them from this list here so that it doesn't clutter up anything. So yeah. A few things worth mentioning. PnPoint is more of a tool for when you have an accurate base model. So like this is the Gran Turismo 7 S15. I know it's accurate, but if you were to use something like the Forza S15 model, you're not going to have a good time. PnPoint will give you a high projection error. It's not going to be accurate. So leave PnPoint for when you have an accurate base. Another thing worth mentioning is that you can photo match just from one camera alone. So like with just one angle, it's better than not having one at all. But for the best results, you should probably have multiple cameras set up. That way you can capture all of the curves and creases on your part. For that, I would actually recommend getting this extension over here, Auto Active Camera Switcher. It allows you to just select the camera and have Blender automatically switch it as the active, like so. If you're curious on how the plugin works and why certain steps are done in certain ways, then definitely check out the GitHub page. Everything here is explained in a lot more detail, so if you need any help, be sure to check this page first.